why we have so many people here this morning. There are a lot of facts and pieces of information that are very detailed, and I wanted to make sure, because this is important enough, that we have everyone here that we could have here to answer any questions that you might come up with. So in the state of Arizona, there are going to be some laterals. There'll be some laterals that are coming off of our existing pipeline and run around the west side of Phoenix. And I believe there are some compressor stations. And we're in the midst of our preliminary design and routing right now. We've been out and surveyed a good piece of it and trying to understand, what is on our proposed route and what do those impacts mean to us, what do they mean to you? And I think that's what we're here to talk about today. And we welcome any and all questions that you have. The good news story for us is that we're here early. It's my belief that we build consensus from the ground up. We never come top down, and so what's important to you is important to us. We have time to incorporate that into our design and into our reclamation efforts. That way, when we apply for our permits from the FERC, from the federal regulators, or from the county, or from the state, we have that baseline consensus at the local level. That's what we're looking for here today. And we appreciate your time and happy to be here and appreciate the invitation very much. So with that, I think it might make sense to just give a route overview for Pima County. If we want to expand upon that and you have broader questions, we're happy to go into that. But we can look at the route, and then we can go from there to our environmental conversation about what do we do when we start a project, how do we start with finishing in mind, and what does long-term caretaking look like for our easements. Yes, sir?
Would it be possible to look at Pinal County as well?
Absolutely.
You have?
Absolutely. We brought everything.
Good.
We brought more than we needed, I'm sure we wanted to make sure.
Our district, we have essentially two districts here. The one district is primarily Pima County, and
Yes.
Winkleman is primarily Pinal.
I think we brought everything.
Okay, great. Well, all right, super.
Want to show them the route? Sure. I don't know if y'all can see there, the monkeys, dim the lights.
We're gonna work on the lights here.
Okay.
There you go. Is that better or not? There, that gets better and better.
It'll get better when they zoom in,
Yeah, as Mike stated, our project is starting out here in Texas and going across, Texas into Mexico, into Arizona. The area in particular that we come across your concerns is up in here, starting out in Pima County, Graham County, Pinal County, that we've got quite a few different landowners that we've been dealing with. And then we're trying to make sure that we've communicated with everybody, taking into various different concerns that each of the landowners have. We've done some various different reroutes based upon some of the input that we've gotten from various different landowners, and wanted to make sure that all of this is open to you so that you guys can see this.
Is there a way, just so that people in the back can see the routing a little easier, to turn off the layers for sections and property owners?
Might go move the projector a little closer to the,
Or back.
with the screen closer to the back.
But when we have the tape off,
He just wants to say hi. Do you guys want to say hi? Come say hi to the puppy. He loves little kids. Okay, Nico, now you settle down.
I don't know if that helps a whole bunch. You can turn those layers off.
Sit your
I think
brothers
just do
off,
it
it's
one
fine.
related to where we're sitting today as it relates to this map. And I think we're primarily interested in starting the conversation around where the two routes deviate, and one goes straight through Pima County. Is this the viewer?
Is the blue line the pipeline route? Yellow.
Yes. While they're fooling with that, I'm gonna talk a little bit about definitions that they're gonna probably use here in a bit. So there's three definitions on routing that we're putting to the viewer and to our design. The first one is proposed route. So pipeline routing is kind of an iterative process, you kind of go at it and back up, and go at it and back up, and go at it again. So the proposed route is kind of where we started, and that's the one that we put mileposts on, so we can keep track of all the changes that we're making. And then we have a preferred route. The preferred route is what develops out of the proposed route, as you're kind of backing up and going at it every time. And so you'll see a proposed route and a preferred route. There's a third category called alternative route. I don't think we'll see any of those today, but those are kind of what I would call cartoonish, and they're there for illustration purposes on what would it look like if we had to go all the way around the mountains, right? And that's part of the analysis that our federal regulators go through. But for today, I think what you'll see is a preferred route and a proposed route. All right, zoom out a little, that's perfect. Zoom out. Okay, so blue line, and where is the preferred line? Do you have that in here?
Yeah, that's
This
the
one?
yellow one, yes.
It says it's a temporary access road, but that's generally speaking following the El Paso natural gas.
Yes,
pipeline.
it is.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so here we go. This is exactly what we've been talking about. This is our proposed route, the blue route that kind of comes up and almost cuts the corner of the county here. And then there is the preferred route, which is the outcome of our survey efforts and our studies around what are the quantity of impacts that would be associated with following the proposed route versus the preferred route. And again, you'll see that in our first filing we're getting ready to make. Does anybody know when we're gonna file those draft resource reports?
Would you say that again?
I was asking.
Oh, okay.
I think it's this week.
This week. Okay, so this week, we're gonna file draft resource reports with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. There'll be a whole lot more detail about our purpose and need and our proposed route and our alternative routes and our preferred routes. But what you'll see is that this blue route is our proposed, and then we'll have a preferred that goes straight through Pima County.
Could you put your finger on landmarks there, like Reddington or San Manuel or something, just?
Can you pull that up?
Just to get a reference.
San Manuel's right
Yeah,
there.
so,
Yeah. Okay. It's kind of hard to see from the back, I know. I don't know if we can make it any bigger or brighter. So that's generally the routing consideration that I think that came to start a conversation with this morning.
What is El Paso, old El Paso line there?
That'd be the one straight through. So one of the principles of our routing is that we are co-located for the majority of the route in large measure with the El Paso natural gas pipelines. That yellow line that comes straight through Pima County will be co-located with those old pipelines.
Co-located, how close does that mean?
Generally speaking, it means that we abut our right of ways. Generally speaking. That changes from time to time as you run into obstacles. It could be a terrain feature, it could be a highway crossing, could be something unique for the landowner, could be a cultural find. That's probably something important to talk about too. Our surveyors are doing 100% pedestrian surveys of our routes. And so they're doing civil surveys, and they're establishing a 200 to 300 foot corridor depending on where we are along the route. But behind them come environmental surveys, which include biosurveys for habitat, species, as well as archaeological and paleontological surveys. So 100% of the route will be covered with foot traffic for 200 or 300 foot wide. We do that just in case we do find something and we need to shift the center line of the pipe over 50, 100 foot. We've got that covered. If that makes sense.
Is that the only place that you got like an alternative route is right there by Pima County? Everywhere else is it co-located?
You know, we have alternative routes and preferred routes in other locations.
And other locations
We
also?
can, we should, yeah.
For clarity on that, a few days ago at the Oracle meeting, you guys didn't have any maps of the Pima County side at all, and I left there under the impression that routing around Pima County was actually the preferred route, but according to what you just said, it's the opposite of that. Would you clarify that? Steve?
Yeah, it's vocabulary. Some people use preferred and alternative interchangeably, but that's not exactly right.
Okay.
And so, it's just a matter of getting the semantics of the conversation down into the organization far enough and well enough over a period of time that everybody understands it. And so, probably my fault for not making sure that everybody understands the difference between an alternative route and a preferred route.
And what you were seeing last week in Oracle, and I was there as well, on maps, was the one route, because it was a more recent change. So there wasn't anything on there. We have it here, we can show it to you here digitally, but it wasn't on the maps, that we had out there.
Okay. Which route are you talking about? This one?
The one.
Okay. So that's the other thing to understand is that sometimes when we make a change and then we go to a meeting, having all of that adopted into the current data set or the current framework that we're using to apply for our permits, there's a little bit of lag in that. And so sometimes we have things in front of us that don't match the decision we made yesterday. We have to have a little bit of time to catch all the documents up. So that could be.
So we're pretty familiar with the NEPA process, and are you using preferred and alternative routes in the same way that NEPA does? Yes, okay.
Yes, so at the conclusion of this, there will be a environmental impact statement. We're going all the way with this. This is a big project. We asked for.
You've not started the NEPA?
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, we submitted our request to FERC, that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And we received permission to enter that process. And what was the date we received that, the third? Yeah, so, yeah, we received permission to enter into that process on April the 3rd. That's typically a 6 to 9 month process, and then we'll file for our certificate. FERC will go through 2 series of scoping meetings. You're familiar, we conducted open houses, that's where we came and set up tables, the public was invited, they could come, look at the project, ask questions. When the FERC hosts their meetings, we will attend those, but they'll be putting those meetings on, and we'll be there after the meeting answering the questions. So that's where anyone can come, ask any question they want, get it on the record, and get their concern.
Couple questions, so, who is gonna be the LFA or the lead federal agency? Is it BLM? When we just went through with, power line?
That's our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They'll be responsible ultimately for the NEPA documentation of the entire project, but then they work with, they have the other federal agencies, will be cooperating agencies, and then they'll be reaching out to, you know, the state and local, agencies and authorities as well to incorporate all that into their NEPA documentation.
So, for example, re-veg, you know, the districts will have an impact on, you know,
Absolutely.
on that, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir. That's part of what Dan and I are here for, really. We had a conversation with, small houses a couple weeks ago, not 2 weeks ago, but we're, as Mike said, we're at the stage of the process now where we're really starting to gather that information that we will incorporate into our applications as a firm. And so that's really why Dan and I are here and wanna visit with folks to understand what has worked for you in the past down this district. And apply those same type of seed mixes and BMPs and everything else in our application.
Absolutely, roads, the works, we're pretty good at that.
Yep.
How about corporate commission? That's the final, once you get the EIS done, they do that to the lower, federal agency. How about, the corporate commission, on eastern, or do you have?
Line sighting committee.
Line sighting committee, et cetera, et cetera. So usually for your major utilities, the corporate commission gets involved, and once it's done, you know, then they'll actually do the route. All right, so you got the route, and then they'll put out a consultation for all parties from state lands and us to the feds about how you do things. So,
Arizona Corporation Commission, your permit to come through Arizona.
I got you. So, yeah, so we've done it a couple of different ways. We did one pipeline through 3 states, and we went individual state by individual state, and gave
Right.
utility commissions, authority to site and route the pipeline.
correct.
In this instance, that will be the lead federal agency, FERC. So when we get the certificate, when we receive the certificate and notice to proceed, the only impacts that are permissible or that are allowed are what are considered in the EIS as a route certificate. So it
Correct.
will be certificated at the federal.
After that initial EIS, that FERC is determining the route. But that's coming up pretty quick, because you already did that.
Well, that's gonna take a little bit, so we'll go into the FERC process, we're in the FERC pre-filing process right now, so that's 6 to 9 months of scoping period, and there will be some more meetings hosted by the FERC to receive all inputs. You know, we'll finish our cultural surveys, we'll finish our biological surveys. There will be a little bit of movement through that process, then we'll file for our certificate. The FERC will then initiate a second scoping phase, as they're building the final environmental impact statement, so additional inputs can be meted out. And that process is really geared towards making sure that, when we finish with this, we have a pipeline route that has the least amount of impacts on the broadest group of stakeholders possible. And so there's just not a better route. That's the ideal concept that we're after.
How long will the construction phase take, if you go the preferred route? Do you expect?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it depends, and then I'll explain that to you and give you a prediction. So it depends a lot on where we are along the route. You know, if you're up in the mountains, that's gonna take a lot longer than it is if you're down in the flats. A pipeline construction project is usually about 13 crews long, and the pipeline contractor, who we will hire, will start a crew every week to 10 days. So he'll push the first crew out. That crew will go out and set environmental controls and reset fences perpendicular to the proposed right of way. Then there'll be a second crew a week to 10 days later, and then so forth and so on. So for any particular landowner, anywhere along the pipeline path, you could expect 13 crews coming through a week to 10 days apart. That gives you.
How many are in this crew, you think?
Say again?
Hundreds of people, dozens of people?
There'll be probably 800 people per crew, per spread, and that'll be broken into 13 pieces. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. So we've got 5 spreads, 800 apiece. It's a bunch.
Is that, you got like buses or something, or is that individual work trucks, or all the above?
That's gonna depend on the location as well. In remote areas where access is poor, we probably will group them up on buses or even potentially helicopters to get them.
How do you plan on mitigating the wear and tear on the roads, like the county roads of the city?
We'll do a pre-survey and a post-survey, and we can either compensate the county for the difference in points on those surveys, or if it's a dirt road, what we've done a lot of times is the contractors there, they get motor graders, we can include that with their contract and have them addressing it.
That's been our problem with the power line, is that they compensated the county, but none of that money went on the road for the locals. You know, the road that we use, our district actually had to take over one of the contracts in Pima County because they, you know, they got a road use agreement, but they didn't get a road maintenance agreement. And what we need is a road maintenance agreement, which we have in Pima County, but we don't have in Cochise County or Pinal County. And like, for example, the asphalt part of Pima County going from out into Pinal County, when you get into Pinal County, that asphalt is about worn through now with that pipeline. And with the power line, and if a pipeline comes in all those vehicles you're talking about, there's gonna be potholes potholes everywhere, so we need to work with the Pinal County to get another coating put on that before you guys come in. And we need to make sure that that money isn't just going to, special projects that the county wants. And so that's probably the biggest concern I mentioned in our other meeting, that the public aren't gonna go out and look at everything you're doing on the pipeline. But what they're gonna see is the traffic, and they're gonna see what the wear and tear on these roads. And so that's a huge thing for our district. And it ties into not just the wear and tear on the road along the San Pedro River, it ties into, soils running down into the river and a lot of environmental issues that are created because that road's being torn up. It's not just about the one issue of the road, it's also about environmental issues and sedimentation in the river, and that's a big concern of ours. So I'm telling you right now that roads are our number one concern. We're not here to tell you guys how to build a gas line or anything like that, but the reclamation part is really where we wanna play a part in, and we need some type of insurance that we can hold you guys accountable to doing this, because we don't wanna go through the process that we did with Sunzia in 15 years of fighting, and so far we've gotten along great, everyone I've talked to, and having to put you on notice of coordination and so forth. If we can avoid that and just start from the beginning working together on these things, then it'll make it a lot easier for you and us.
We appreciate those comments. That's our intent, and that's our belief system. There's some guys around the table here with gray hair, and we've seen some ugly projects. The best time to get this right up front. And that's also the easiest, and it's the cheapest, and it's just better for everybody. You get too far down the road, you get too far gone, and then it just doesn't, it's not a smooth project. So we want a smooth project. We've bumped our knees enough, so that's why we're here, and we appreciate the invitation. We don't know everything about what you need locally. We're here to listen. We're here to take notice and make sure that we incorporate that into our plans and our designs.
I guess fortunately for us, we just went through the power lines about, we didn't want another project on it, but we had a lot of experience, and so we've gone through, we've learned a lot, so, we don't wanna make it any harder than it is either, but we want, there's some, we know what the concerns are, so.
And anything you learned specifically with those county roads along the way would be helpful for us too, because it kind of is a weird position for us, right? Because the county's road, if they then choose not to do anything with it, as you mentioned, they may pay.
It's a tough deal, the liability and everything, like with Pattern, they wanted to grade the road and help us, but they couldn't. They had a road use agreement, but they didn't have a road maintenance agreement.
That's typically what we do when we do road use and maintenance.
But what we need to do when you go to Cochise or Pima or Pinal, if you guys can notify us, so when it goes through the board of supervisors, so when you write a check, that money is earmarked only to be used for this road. And what kind of plan do they have to maintenance the road? Even though you can't, we wanna see that plan on what kind of, maintenance program they're gonna do.
And I think that's what I was headed with that. Anything you guys have learned along the way that you can pass along would be helpful for us too. We're mutual, right? You guys.
We'll have somebody in charge of roads, they'll coordinate with our legal department. Because, one thing that sends us up for is we have a different room where the county will go through, we don't wanna do that, We want to come up with a good plan, and a good purpose, and a good direction that accomplishes the mission and sort of a uniform package for roads across all counties. Sounds like maybe you prefer that be held in trust. If that's possible, I don't know, we have attorneys that can work with each county.
How would y'all resolve that, getting it, for y'all to do that?
So we had to, so for Pima County, we did an IGA, intergovernment agreement for 10 years, because, quite frankly, they tried to do some maintenance, but a lot of it, on these dirt roads, they don't have the knowledge and know-how actually our district does. And we have authority not on the road, but on the natural resources. And, so we're a legal local government, and so we can do an intergovernmental agreement with them, and that's what we did with Pima County. And we don't have one with Cochise now.
Could you just do a quick overview maybe of the breakdown of communication between FERC, the contractor, Energy Transfer, as far as the hierarchy of like reporting if we had road concerns or dust concerns, or let's say the construction's going? How does that communication work? Is it preferred that you guys have a direct contact between us, or we go through FERC first and then you guys, or how does that usually play out? If that makes sense.
My preference is that you work directly with us. We're the owner of this pipeline. We're gonna have someone build it for us, for our contractor to do that. We're gonna be your neighbors for the next 100 years. Just like the pipeline that we have running through, the northern part of the state, the Transwestern system that was built almost 70 years ago. We're gonna be here for a long time. We operate pipelines that have been around for almost 100 years at this point. So, any questions that you have, one of the reasons we broke it down into buckets, and Arizona being one of them, because we have so much going on here. And so Justin and Alton and Justin, are leading that effort. And those individuals, our project managers, project directors, know what it is you're looking for, what's going on, you will address it. You're more than welcome to contact FERC directly. Anyone can always do that, but that just winds up back with this group, so. Typically, that's, it just takes longer, gets more people involved. And we will always create a record, I think, of any contact that we have with any individual, any landowner, any agency, that there's a record of that conversation. We create that record, and our right-of-way department keeps it, and that's what the department.
That's where our land agents come in, they're your direct contact with, the company. If there's something that's going on, if there's something that you're seeing out there, even through this process now, Charlie's been in contact with quite a few of you for survey permission and making sure notifications are happening. And again, we keep record of all the notes so that we don't miss, we try not to miss everything that you guys tell us is going on out there. So when you call us, you call Charlie, those notes come directly to me, to Rick, and they are passed out to everybody that needs to see those so that we can take care of whatever issues that we have. So you guys, when you call, if you don't have our phone numbers, we'll make sure that you have them. If you misplace them, please, get with us today. We'll make sure that you have our contacts.
And the right-of-way folks are, the Charlies of the world, may not be exactly Charlie, or he may go to a different spot, but they'll be running around out here till 2031 probably.
They'll
All
be
the
here as long as
restorations.
that, yeah.
So they'll be around for quite a while. The right-of-way agents will be out here. Ones that have been talking to you now will probably be talking to you in 5 years. And, your young kids or grandkids are in middle school now, but that's kind of how these work. So they'll be around. They'll be available to take those issues and pass it on.
That's a real good point. I mean, if you call your right-of-way agent first, he's probably the one that's gonna answer his phone every single time, pretty quick. Whereas we may be a day getting back to you.
So what we're doing with the power line is Katie Klein, she's got a background in natural resource management, and she meets on a monthly basis, and we check off all the environmental, reclamation. She can explain it more, but she's in contact constantly. She gets paid by both districts to be our outreach person and check off. We actually checked off, we're in an agreement with the power line to check off all the reclamation. And we've had some fights when we've had to change, like the towers, they set them up, for example, like you would back east and draining all the water down the stream. And it's like, no, we don't have that much water here. We retain all our topsoil and we dam it off and then have an overflow, stuff like that. And so that's how we, just so you know, that's sort of what we expect the districts, how we would like to work with you guys if possible.
Okay.
Get some type of agreement. I know legal will probably have to do that in place with the conservation districts. to be able to check off on all this stuff in our districts.
We have the right people here taking notes on that right now.
Yeah.
So we meet weekly, we meet monthly, we meet quarterly, we have a whole series of meetings. We'd love to be connected to your meetings to the extent that it's possible. So
We just got you some more work to do.
You can quit your day job now.
Yeah.
And you guys will have all our phone numbers too. You met Scott Collins.
Yeah.
It'll be cooking bull out here, whooping the contract, between all of us.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So at what point in the process, along with communications and stuff that you guys are talking about, so at what point in the process can the district submit its written recommendations for when you actually have your plan in place, your upland erosion control, re-veg and maintenance plan?
Sooner the better.
Yeah, anytime.
So they can put together what they feel are these priorities and concerns, like a road maintenance versus a road use, and then seed mix and stuff like that. They should be submitting that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then
We
does that
have to
get,
have, we will be developing erosion control and revegetation plan that will go into our draft resource reports that will be filed with FERC in, August. So it would be good to get your information now, so when we're developing that plan, we can have that information in.
and so how does that coincide with if they were wanting to be, as specific as possible in terms of the route? Will you be at that level of specificity with the route by the time you submit those plans in August?
Pretty close. It'll be small changes, I expect.
That process really is, it's narrowing it down to that final route, final information, what we're gonna do before FERC will issue the certificate, and then, that becomes really the project Bible, where we're gonna build it, how we're gonna build it, how we're gonna reclaim it, the soil out there and the restoration, and then how it's gonna be operated in the future. And so, we're in the initial stage of that process, having filed with FERC for the pre-filing process. And so that's really all about getting information from those, authorities like yourself, landowners, interested community members, to feed into the FERC process that ties back to, we'll be filing our application with the FERC for that certificate. And as Dan and Mike said, that's like August timeframe that we'll be filing a complete set of our draft resource reports. And we want that to be as complete as possible so that everybody can see that, not just here in, this area, but across the project, across the country. Really, people are paying attention to pipeline projects, so they get all that information. We'll make whatever changes that come in through the FERC scoping process after, people had a chance to weigh in on it. And then we'll file the final application, and that's what FERC will ultimately issue our certificate on.
So when you say certificate, these different plans, they're actually like part of the certificate?
They become part of the certificate because FERC we'll put together our whole package, all the environmental resource reports that Dan was talking about. That covers everything from the project description and alternatives, and it's got sections on soils, wildlife, water, demographics, land use, everything else. Those all are part of the application to the FERC. I mean, there's bigger parts of the whole application, not just the environmental portions, but, that all comes in as part of the certificate application. That covers the commercial side and all the other things too. Once they issue that certificate, that will incorporate all the environmental things that we said we would be building under. And so when they issue the certificate, they will say, you're gonna build this in accordance with everything you filed in the applications. And
Okay.
so, that's kinda how that process works. Sorry, it's a little long-winded, but, it gets complicated at that level.
Ryan, might help everybody understand. So if there's a change after we file our certificate, what does that typically look like? A cultural issue?
Well, so after the certificate has been issued by the FERC.
After we file.
After we file for it, yeah, there could be somebody come up and, you know, from the general public, or it could be from one of the state agencies or something like that, says, hey, we've got a particular concern here that, you know, Mike mentioned a cultural resource, but it could be a well or something like that on somebody's property, that they will file those comments with the FERC, and FERC will ask us basically, well, wait a second, have you guys considered this? And we'll have to address that with FERC back and forth, and that's all a matter of public record. That'll be on the docket, and people can look and see how we addressed it, or if it's something that we really need to go back, take a look at, and maybe make a minor deviation along the route to what Mike was talking about earlier, those minor changes along the line that sometimes take a little refinement. Those kind of things will come into play, and then that's all incorporated into that certificate when they issue that. And once they give us the certificate, then we have to go back before we can start construction and say, okay, now you've issued us our certificate to build this project. We wanna go ahead and get started, so we file an application, a request to commence construction. FERC will review all that and say, have we really checked everything on this and make sure that we know exactly what the company's doing for that? We'll have that process where they're looking at that, and then they say, yeah, okay, you're authorized to commence construction, and that's when everybody starts showing up out on your right away with those 13, 14 different crews that are out there. But that's kind of the overall process from just a general regulatory thought.
So there can be amendments to the certificate, or there won't be once the certificate?
What would you call them, variants?
The minor field variances are, and there's different levels there, because again, FERC has to make sure that they've met their NEPA requirements, because they're the lead federal agency on this. So if there's any kind of field variances where maybe we've made that minor deviation, or maybe we needed additional workspace somewhere and we've requested that, and FERC has looked at it and said, yeah, okay, there's a level of different variances. So some things can be authorized in the field. FERC will generally have an environmental inspector that reports directly to FERC, and you'll be working with our environmental crews and our construction team, and they'll say, okay, we understand you you need an extra workspace here. Was that area considered under the project? Yes. Was there anything there in the way of endangered species or cultural resources? No. Okay. They'll approve that in the field. And then there's things that maybe rise to a level where that they don't have the authority out in the field to do that. It goes back to the FERC project manager in Washington DC, and they review it. They might have questions for us. Ultimately, they'll either approve or deny that request. And then there's others that are basically it's all levels. There's level 1, level 2, level 3, and those might require us to go back out with maybe more information to the general public. Those are very rare, because you don't want to be down the process and have your contractors out there and everybody working and suddenly have some kind of change that's gonna stop everything in the process.
So overall then it behooves everybody to get as much information in there as possible in the beginning.
Yes.
And so the district's gonna wanna submit.
Yeah, and whatever information you can share with us, we will incorporate into our application that goes to the FERC, and then we'll be looking at, and I'm sure communicating with the districts as your conservation districts and others weigh in on the project, so, that's kind of how it works.
So when we submit an application to FERC will have scoping meetings for their EIS that they're developing, but that scoping meeting at the very beginning is just a very informative. They're saying, we're gonna prepare an EIS, and they just take your comments.
Yeah.
Once we file our certificate, that's when our application with all those research reports, they will vet all that information to develop their EIS. And then they'll publish that EIS, then they'll come back out with scoping. Again, that is a public document, you'll review that, and you can comment on it again. But,
That scoping meeting is physical, or that's?
oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it'll be held across the project areas.
But getting your information in first is very important, so you don't have to, it'll already be in our application that goes to FERC to develop the EIS.
So I've got 3 or 4 questions. You mentioned that, you're gonna have some laterals off of there, off the main line. Are any of them in our districts?
I'll defer that to Justin. Justin has a mastery of where the laterals are situated on this project, both in existing lateral and proposed.
So I would say in this area, the first one, in near the Wilcox area, there is a, what we're calling Apache. It is coming off the main line south of there. It's feeding the existing, gas plant. For what it's about, there's another one, along that Apache route, is going to be, and that Apache route is, feeding in the Arizona cooperative electric companies. Off that Apache lateral, there's another small lateral that we are working with Tucson Electric on, to feed one of their new plants there. A lot of this is still very early on, as we're talking about scoping. One of the things we've had to identify is potential impacts to landowners, so there's a lot of landowners that have been notified. We may not impact all of them, we're just trying to work through those commercial firms out. There are 2, the Wilcox area. There is one here in the San Manuel area, and we're also working with, Arizona EPCOT, Corporation, and G&T and some other folks. That's probably the lateral you see going up north of there, coming off the main line. That one is still not determined. They're having some issues with some the copper mines and things in the area, so there's likely that one is gonna move. But there's one, the 2 in Wilcox, one in the San Manuel area, and then further west of there, there's one that we're calling the Saguaro lateral. It is feeding APS. It's an existing plant, it's a coal-fired plant. They are transitioning that to natural gas, and then further from there, we're getting into the Mesa, Florence, Jamaica area.
The 4 ones over towards Phoenix, or?
It's,
Cause our district goes to north of Florence.
Okay, yes, sir, it's probably right in the middle of the county. I don't know, the nearest town for Saguaro. What's the nearest town?
Show where it starts and then what's the nearest town that we got.
That's the Cargill there.
Easiest way to start is over by Freeman Ranch Road, take it over to I-10, and then it goes.
Okay,
across
Freeman Ranch
there.
Road is on our, in our district.
Yep, so
Yeah.
we would be on the west end is where that route starts over there on the west end of Freeman Ranch Road.
And you'll own that lateral?
That'll be-
And put it
yeah,
in, if it's, where it goes there?
We've got precedent agreements with the electrical co-ops, so what we're trying to do is identify, if it's an existing facility, it's a little bit easier to nail down. So we're working with the counties and the states and all the different landowners, the survey commission, civil and bio and culture, as Mike mentioned. But some of the areas that haven't been built, those locations are still fluctuating. Because I know they're having to do their permitting process, but we're trying to nail those down so we can get our footprint, we can get our landowner stakeholder list, and proceed with our work.
But those will be part of this EIS?
Yes, all of that's connected. Yes.
Okay,
We'll
good.
build it, we'll own it, we'll operate it.
Yeah, okay. I have read that there's gonna be like 3 pumping stations, in this, on this line, from start to finish.
Well-
Anyway, is any of them gonna be in our districts?
Yes, I think so. What's the nearest compressor station?
The compressor station 6 is just north of Wilcox.
There we go.
Compressor station 7 is just on the west side of Oracle.
West side of Oregon.
South by Southbrook.
It's near the, I think there's an existing El Paso compressor station there.
There is.
Near that one.
Yeah, there is.
Kinder Morgan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have 7 compressor stations on the new construction before we get to Coolidge, and then we have some additional compressor stations, two additional on the existing Phoenix lateral that's over on the west side.
Well, what will those, the impacts on those be, and what will they look like? And will there be traffic to them and all that kind of stuff?
Well, there will be, so there's traffic during construction and there's traffic just for normal operations. I'm thinking that they are 15 to 20 acre sites, does that sound right?
That's correct.
Oh, nominally 15 to 20 acre sites. And to the extent possible, we want to put those as close to the existing Kinder Morgan compressor stations as possible, so that we can, number one, limit the impacts, and number two, take advantage of local utility. And they already be in place because they're already there.
Okay, but being a 48-inch line, Kinder Morgan isn't that big, is it?
No, sir.
Yeah, so it'll be I would assume, a lot bigger plant.
Well, no,
No?
not really.
No, okay.
Not really. You can overcome a lot of that with just the size of the turbine that you order, the horsepower output, the wheels that you tie to the back of it, the compression, what differentials you're looking. That footprint, really doesn't change too much
I see.
from one to the other.
It shouldn't be much different than the one that's on the hill there on the.
Yeah.
Kinder Morgan.
Okay.
The salmon oil ladder, what is that feeding, or is that, you know?
That's still a moving target.
So what's the demand, I guess? is the question.
I'm sorry, say again.
What's the demand, was it for the mines, or what's?
No, it's for a new electrical, producing plant that we're
Oh.
working with Arizona G&T on. So they're having issues working with the mine, getting survey permission, and so that one's on hold for us. They initially gave us a coordinate, and that's what the lateral shows that we're going to. But like I said, that one's currently on hold. We're just waiting for information from them on where they're going to spot the location, and then we'll either have to route to their location, or they're gonna try to get closer to our main line. So we're cooperating with them, and just waiting for the final decision.
Which mine?
It's the magma copper mine.
Oh, in Globe Mining.
No, right here.
Oh, this one, are they gonna?
No, they're not getting, it's their property, they're having trouble with waste use.
Oh, but what's the use for the gas for?
For an electrical.
Electrical plant.
Power
Oh, on that property?
It's not there yet.
I see,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so we're waiting for them to coordinate that and permit that. Understanding there may be a large sale coming up, so that might have some issues there, but we're just waiting on them to, I guess, let us know where that is. So like I said, some of these are the best information we have now. We're trying to provide that to FERC, so as we're going through these scoping and drafting, we'll try to narrow that scope and nail it down a little bit more. We're waiting on the electric co-op.
Okay. I can see that, between our two districts, you're gonna have to cut about 100 fences, minimum. What does the construction look like through a particular area? Are you gonna be working on 20 miles at a time, or 20 feet, or 200, or what? Where you're gonna be impacting our landowners, you know, a certain set of landowners?
It's a continuing process, like you said. You go through and clear, set fences, new fences and gates where the existing fences are. Then widen and put gates in and up for traffic, construction equipment to go through.
That'll be the first step?
Yeah, they'll go through and set up environmental, they'll go through and clear and grade it out, set environmental structures and everything, and then start rolling back through with, each comes with the same. You try to get it where it's just a continuous process, you don't have to move it around. And then they'll come through and string the pipe, cut the ditch, and then start welding and backfilling, going in and backfilling. And as the front crew comes out, they'll go around to the back and start cleaning up. By then, hopefully, they've got some buried in the ground, so they'll start cleaning up and restoring. We'll have to leave a travel lane on there. And then once everybody's out of there, we'll come back and clear out, clean up and restore the travel lane. So everything will be 100% restored. You just work your way through and then work your way out.
To answer your question, I think you're probably trying to get to is if you've got 13 crews and they're a week to 10 days apart, and each of them is getting 7,000 feet per day of physical progress, you should be thinking about 6,000 or 7,000 feet times 13 crews. It could be 50 or 60 miles long.
So if I have, if you're coming through my property, I just have, say, a small property, how long am I gonna be having to put up with crews going through there before you call?
15 weeks or so,
Okay.
approximately, just depending on what's nearby. If there's a road crossing nearby where they have to set in and do a trenchless technique and get across it, and they've got big bore pits, the last crew will come through will be the tie-in crew, and sometimes we'll be waiting on that, because that's the thing that takes the long.
They have gaps in there where nobody's coming through.
Sure, I understand.
And then they pick back up as they move through.
But more or less 11 weeks per total.
13 crews, a minimum a week plus. So you're gonna be a minimum of 13 weeks. And some of those
13, okay.
crews, they may wait and hold off just a little bit longer and let that front end get out ahead, so when they come, they don't have to catch them. So it just depends on the.
4 or 5 months.
It'd be a summer job, it'd be most of it.
And then you'll be through with the construction, start with the rebase and all that kind of stuff.
Right, so they'll do an initial restoration, and then there is a final restoration, which really speaks to the performance standards that are laid out in our plans that are adopted through this feedback process. So, what is the requirement for our contractors to complete? I would emphasize there is a period for punch lists. Landowners are gonna have punch list items. There's a wash, there's something going on, to take care of, and that's before the contractor leaves. And the contractor will be back the following year for warranty, and be back again the following year for warranty. And at some point, their warranty period expires contractually, and then it's on our operations group to continue with the requirements of the permit that this project is granted. That's how that works.
Do you guys have any rough numbers of new road miles that you're putting in? Like in our district, we got the Reddington Pass, a big recreation area, side by side dirt bikes, whole 9 yards. And so when power line left, now there's dozens, if not hundreds of miles of roads that are wide open to those, which is a continuing problem for us as far as, maintaining that for, multiple issues, not just traffic, but erosion and whatnot. So do you get, with this initial impact, do you have any numbers of like, this many more miles are gonna be available now? And during construction, are those available for people to drive on and recreate? Like, is there any mitigation plan for traffic, I guess is what I'm saying?
I think the answer to the question is yes.
Okay.
I'm not aware, so we distinguish our roads between permanent and temporary. Temporary may be a road that's already there, and we have to declare that for this process, to get it adopted into our permitted disturbance for the EIS through the FERC process. So we have temporary access roads and permanent access roads. Permanent access roads are what we need to maintain, the pipeline, the valve maintenance, etc. I don't know that we've identified new stars on this project anywhere. It's something that's already there.
We're really trying, and Alden can speak to this more, but you're really trying to minimize any new road construction, because that's just additional environmental impact that has to be assessed, surveyed, it's more time and money for the contractors to build that and everything, so we really, I can't think of really anywhere out here on this, there's a few, but in this particular area,
Get from an existing road
over to the right of way, but we're trying to make use of as many existing roads as we can.
I don't know that we have, we're cutting actually any new road.
Yeah.
We're using existing road.
In this area, we'll improve them, but really, all our construction traffic and everything goes down that right of way, and we control the right of way during construction for the
I think
access.
that's a big key.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of the experiences, your recent experience, right, with the power lines, and very different beasts, right? They're going and clearing towers, and they need to make roads everywhere to get to these clearings. We're clearing a linear path through there, so we're creating what looks like a road, but we're revegetating everything, but that's our active right of way.
So like the El Paso line where you can, take side by side on the whole thing and it's just a terrible mess. You're saying you guys leave, there's not a road on top of that pipeline from here to eternity, that's, other than getting to a compressor station or some maintenance area, that entire line is not gonna be a 2-track on top of it?
That's not our intention.
Okay.
it's back just like it was before we went through that. We didn't dedicate any of it to be a road.
I don't know if FERC would let us do that.
Yeah.
Will you be allowed to lock the gates?
That's what I brought up, that's what I was gonna bring up, we found too, there's two different types of easements, we found out the hard way that in El Paso, they didn't have intentions, I guess, of anyone using that with OHVs or whatever, and they don't have the easement, or now it's Morgan. Where we were locking it for years, well, the hunters came in and said, oh, they looked up the type of easement they had, and they said, oh, you can't be locking this anymore, so they used the.
I think that's on state land.
On state land, we're talking, but it's mostly going through state land, so like, this is where you're using, it's gonna be on state land. And so they use the gas line to access other roads to go around like private properties and stuff, and it's a huge issue.
Same way with, Sunzia, they don't have, their easement doesn't really allow them to lock it off.
Can't lock
So,
state land.
so there's, just so you know, there's two types of easements in the Arizona Land Department.
What are they called?
I don't know, Cody knows,
Inclusive and exclusive.
Cody knows, he walked in.
You just inclusive there.
Here's Cody having back there.
Can't hide it.
Exclusive and inclusive, I guess is what it's called.
But if you have livestock, then you can FERC consent, so that is-
Right, right, exactly. I know.
Okay.
So we'll bring that up with the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keith and I are the ones that are actually dealing with the state personally.
Very good.
So, we'll bring that.
Just so you know about that.
Cause I found that overall gates and fences are a weird thing with the state anyways, from the little bit of experience I've had with them so far, so we'll bring that up and understand what that means. To make sure that we can lock off, because it is important to their tenants as well, right? So,
Sure.
it should be allowed.
Well, main thing is the gates, but, locking really, auxiliary conversation. Yeah.
So there's something to do, like, we'll have temporary gates on the right of way. If you don't want gates left on your fence line, you can put that in your agreement with the right of way, and then once we're finished and out of there, they can restore that fence across the right of way. But if you want the gates left, you know, you need to designate, you know.
Okay,
lock
so,
or open.
okay, so is that on you to find out from the landowner, or do you want us to do that?
No, that's
It's
when
us.
they talk to the landowners,
Okay,
individual landowners say, I don't want gates across
Okay.
my property.
Every landowner or property owner along this pipeline will have a custom agreement just for their property.
okay, good.
But if they want them left, they can leave it.
Now, when you have an open ditch, you have fenced off or critters?
No,
No.
not typically.
You'll have dirt and everything on one side, pipe on the other, and then there's a ramp. So if something goes in, there'll be ramps cut periodically where you end ditches and all, so if something goes in it, they can run out there again. And there'll be gaps across, leave gaps in the pipe, for livestock, wildlife to go across, while it's strung up on top of the ground. And then there'll be gaps in the ditch that's not cut.
Okay. Well, what I'm thinking of is Sonoran Desert tortoise. You know, the Fish and Wildlife Service is being sued again to relist, the desert tortoise. And that's a big, you're gonna be going through prime tortoise habitat in both districts. And, we sure don't want to give the folks that are wanting to be relisted another reason to. So, we have the world champion tortoise expert right over there. And she's our contractor. So we really want you to work with her on tortoise stuff, among other things.
I'm sure it's gonna come up.
I'm sure it will with us, for sure.
And just so y'all know, Alvin's our turtle expert on her.
But it was an African tortoise.
We don't worry about that.
I wanna just real quickly introduce Jonathan Benton. He showed us late, and again, that's probably my fault. I tried to send out a new calendar and invite from Mountain Standard Time. I'm not sure.
It did not.
So apologies for being late. Jonathan's our senior director over in environmental partnership. He and I have the same.
A question on gates, I know it's a huge issue for us. We just got through putting in almost 100 gates, 16 footers, done in concrete, really good, fences back up again. It's a lot of those are on main roads going in and out of most of the ranches, especially on state land. Is 16 foot gonna be good for you, or are you gonna rip those out and then replace them? Question.
Probably take them out.
Take them out?
Depends on where.
80?
I like the idea of ripping them out.
Well, so there's two gates, I mean, there's a gate on the road that gets us to the right of way, and then there's a gate that's affected by basically, we're building a highway.
Right.
Through the country, so if it's right there, it'll have to come out so that we have safe passage of people and equipment and material to get everything built. But again, when we're finished, it goes back.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they'll go back with, you'll have to say something out of the gates or back.
Yeah.
But there's a couple places now that, prefab all these, H-braces gates, that pipeliners use all over their,
Yeah.
6-inch and 4-inch pipe, concrete and underground. They'll put it back as good as it was or better.
Okay.
But I'll give you a side boom with going a pipeline, it's gonna take up, with the weights out and all that, probably 20 feet. So, they'll have to come out. Our working space is, permanently easement is what, 60 foot?
Yep.
And our workspace and all, the total is probably 50. For safe passage, for segregating topsoil, segregating rock, everything, matting, how you have to do it. You have to have that much room to try to be safe, and, that pipe is very heavy.
Didn't you guys bring in non-native material, like something with bed pipe in, or you use what's there?
If there is, they'll use shaker buckets.
Okay.
And we have a standard screen size on the shaker buckets that we can put in. And it depends if they can get enough, pad dirt for that, and if not, they'll have to bring it in. So it's gonna depend on the areas that we go through and what, you can't use topsoil for padding material, you have to use, subsoil.
Our preference is to use, shake out what we can, add the pipe and use it. That Alvin brings up a good topic, that's something that's on my curiosity list for this part of the world is, what is the definition of topsoil? That's one of my scars that I picked up on another project. I know topsoil, you get two experts to tell me two different things, so. I'd like to eventually, we don't have to discuss it here today, but that's at the top of my list of, what is topsoil? What's it?
Yeah.
Expert on that too.
So, how we get across the river? We go under it or over it?
We'll drill it under it.
Under it?
Yeah.
How far?
About 4,000 foot drill right now.
No, I mean, how deep?
Depends on how once they design it out from the geotech, they'll have a radius in it, could be 30 foot deep going in the river. So, depends on how the engineers design it.
So there will be no surface disturbance in the river bottom? Cool.
So that's one of the things that we're gonna spend a lot of time on, and we've got a firm that we just hired to go out and do geotechnical analysis on this. They'll go out and what's important about the depth of it, after we engineer it, is what's beneath the surface, because they have to do a fracture analysis. Last thing you want is, you do it too shallow, and then you're doing your directional drilling, you have some mud out there in the middle, and you've got a bunch of people running down there to clean it up. So, we wanna get at a level where we're really confident that once we get down and going across, it's a good formation and stuff.
Ideally, what would how deep would it be?
It's gonna depend on your elevations of where you
distance, there's a maximum radius, and there's a minimum distance for 48-inch pipe, just like any pipe. So you can only put so much radius of bend in that distance. But, like he's saying, they're fixing to start geotech core sampling. Ideally, if you go down 20 foot and it's cobble, and you got solid rock below that, we go through the solid rock, so we go through the cobble. Really? Cobble will stop the stick your pipe. And you're continuously bringing out, circulating mud, and you just can't hold it, it's too hard to hold the hole, you know?
The geotech firms will be drilling in the river then to get
Yeah,
those
they'll-
samples.
I don't think they're going in the river, I think they're going on both sides. They won't go in the middle of the river.
And they'll back up and offset, and also want to drill a core sample right in the middle of your line, because that's where
And they'll be using bentonite-based mud. And any additive that they have to put in has to be approved by environmental, that it's non-toxic to anything, so.
It's actually not just approved by us, but it's also approved by FERC.
Yeah, you can't just go throw anything in there like a wildcat or.
I'm thinking it's probably gonna be somewhere around the 50-foot deep mark. That'd be my guess, right? We need to drill a core.
Well, we've gone over our hour, we've got another meeting, we've got people waiting on us. Has anyone got any pressing questions they can't live without asking today?
I'm sure we'll have more meetings.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys.
What's your
coming.
thinking?
That's-
You bet, this has been
A lot more
very helpful.
I appreciate y'all that.
Yeah, get some lessons learned from what y'all have been through on this stuff. So we can help avoid it, we don't have to fight it.
It'd be helpful if you guys could get us a contact list, for each of us, with phone numbers and names and.
Sure.
Who's who and what, and where.
Yeah, a list rather than somebody just handing us a card, just.
Yeah, exactly.
On the list.
You get it to Wendy,
Max email.
she'll send it out.
Yeah,
No,
that'd be great.
well, see, this is important what you guys have done here today. We went through 13 years of pure hell, on the last one, and we don't wanna do that again. And the more we can do, I could see right now getting you a seed list would be, I'll give you an example, they gave us a seed list that had a bunch of invasive species that the government doesn't want, nobody wants, and they wanted to plant it. So, I mean, we'll give you some good gouge for that and get going. And the other issue is roads. You need to take a look at what you guys are gonna be doing with roads so we can start planning too. Ranchers and farmers moving cattle around,